Hello, everyone, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the spoiler discussion of Captain America Brave New World. I know you didn't click on the same thing twice. You're like, oh, wait, I thought he already did a review. I did do a review, but I didn't talk spoilers. I didn't really go in depth with a lot of things because I didn't want to spoil it for anybody. I wanted to give you all a couple of days to have the chance to go see it, even though if you listened to my review, you probably didn't want to after I reviewed it, but I gave you enough time to check it out for yourself. And we're going to discuss in depth. Well, I'm going to talk as if we were in the theater together watching this movie, locked up, arm to arm, sharing each other popcorn and sipping each other's drinks if need be. And I want to go a little further in depth for my reasons for feeling the way I felt about Captain America Brave New World, in case you didn't check out the review, which I encourage you to go check out. I didn't like the movie. I did not like Captain America Brave New World. And it was for a number of reasons. And half of them, as much as I spilled on for about a half an hour about it, I still didn't go in depth with a lot of things that I didn't like. My reasoning for not liking it. And I thought about it for about a day. And I was, maybe I ought to go more in depth and really explain myself as to why this movie just didn't land with me. I've talked to a couple of people who've seen the film and they feel the complete opposite. And that's fine. When they asked me how I felt, I was upfront and honest. I said, well, I didn't like it. You know, I gave my reasoning and they gave theirs, and their reasoning is valid. I understand where they're coming from. Like I always say, film is subjective. It's all about who the audience is, you know, and movies I like, you might hate. Movies I hate, you might like. That's the beauty of movies. And, you know, I'm not mad at them for not liking it, because it's the shoe has been on the other foot multiple times, and I get it. And so I'm not discouraging anybody. And like I said, their reasonings make sense. I like, okay, I see what you're saying. I understand everything you saying. Unfortunately, you're telling me, and not the filmmakers who made this movie. And that's the perspective I'm looking at it from. As a movie, this movie didn't work. In case you don't know, Captain America Brave New World is the 35th film in the entire MCU franchise. This is the 4th Captain America film, technically, with the title Captain America, because one of my beefs about this movie, I didn't get the sense of a Captain America movie. This felt like the Incredible Hulk 2. And that's not a bad thing, but if you're going to make a kind of a backdoor sequel to the Incredible Hulk, do the Incredible Hulk. You know, I know with the rights issues, because I think Universal Pictures owns the rights to the Incredible Hulk, so they can't directly make a Incredible Hulk movie. I get that, you know, but this didn't have to be a Incredible Hulk movie. This could have been any other thing than a Captain America film, and any other film to kind of spearhead this new generation, or this new what's the word, it's on the tip of my tongue, I'm blanking on it real quick, a new era of Captain America, where we have a new Captain America that's holding the shield. And not only a new Captain America, but a black Captain America, which is a big deal, you know, and not just for the black community, for America as a whole, you know. And so I would have loved to have seen a film to explore that, you know, and this movie didn't do that. We really focused a lot on Thaddeus Ross in this movie, rightfully so. Thaddeus Ross is portrayed by the great, the iconic, the living legend himself, Harrison Ford, and he does an excellent job taking over for the late great William Hurt, who has played this role ever since The Incredible Hulk in 2008, and he tragically passed away a couple of years ago. And this this didn't feel like they just brought somebody in to replace William Hurt. This really felt like Harrison Ford jumped in and did, really brought something extra that William Hurt didn't bring to the role. Now, it's no slight against William Hurt. William Hurt is an Academy Award winning actor. Or at least he was, God rest his soul. But he was given a task and he executed his task. I loved William Hurt as Thunderbolt Ross throughout the MCU. I think he did an excellent job. And to have Harrison Ford, that was the one thing that I was actually nervous about. Well, not the one thing. I had a few things I was nervous about going to see this movie, but that was one of the biggest things that I was a little concerned about. Was Harrison Ford just going to treat this as a paycheck movie and, read his lines and go to his trailer after? I really thought that's how he was going to treat this role. No, Harrison Ford dove into this role and just brought a different layer or brought this role to a different level that I wasn't expecting. There was emotion. There was this internal crisis that he was going through. It was a lot for him. He is the only character throughout this film that has an actual arc, from beginning, middle, and end. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. But this isn't Thaddeus Ross, Brave New World. This was Captain America, Brave New World. Sam Wilson was supposed to have the arc. He had no arc. He had no development. There was nothing about Sam Wilson that I learned in this movie. Nothing. He didn't grow. He didn't excel at nothing. He didn't go through anything difficult to whereas he had to question his morality or, nothing. There was no conflict with this character whatsoever. You go to the past Captain America films with Chris Evans, and this is a super soldier. This is an individual at human peak, peak strength, peak speed, peak everything. He is the perfect human being, without being considered a quote unquote superhuman. Just the serum brings his abilities to his peak. And that's what makes him so great as a character. But you take that away, Steve Rogers is just your prototypical Boy Scout good guy who's going through a lot. And Steve Rogers in every film, I don't care if it was the first Avenger or the Winter Soldier or Civil War, and then you can throw in the Avengers films as well. Steve Rogers went through something through those movies. He struggled with something, whether it was mental or physical or even spiritual. He went through something throughout those films, in each and every film. Sam Wilson went through absolutely nothing trying. Oh, well, Kevin, he fought the Red Hulk at the end of the movie. You really think that's a fight? And that was the thing that just had me tearing my hair out, and I'm bald headed. I was so frustrated with that fight. Sam Wilson is wearing a vibranium suit. It contains kinetic energy. So whenever Red Hulk punches that suit, it's going to retain that energy. Why it took Sam Wilson an entire fight, I would say 10, 12 minutes to expel that energy to knock out the Red Hulk. And it still didn't do nothing. Red Hulk still got up, but it took him forever to try. He's trying to go hand to hand with Red Hulk. Steve Rogers wouldn't have went hand to hand with Red Hulk. He knows it would have been a task. Sam Wilson is me with wings on and a shield. That's Sam Wilson. It is nothing quote unquote special about Sam Wilson. He's a normal person. He's not invulnerable. He doesn't have superpowers. There's nothing special about Sam Wilson. To whereas he had to take on the Red Hulk 1-on-1 and get the better of him. I get the story element of it. I get all that. But it just didn't work. The payoff at the end didn't work. The conclusion to that fight did not work for me. But like I talked to a couple of guys who went and saw it, they explained why it worked for them. I'm not going to go into depth why they said it worked for them. I'll leave it to your own devices. We're just speaking on mine. But I respect their opinion. That's all I can say. I respect their opinion. I don't agree. I don't see it. And I tried to see it their way. Don't see it. The villain. Once again, spoilers. Well, it's not really a spoiler. You saw it in the trailers, but they didn't say his name. To be honest with you, they didn't say his name throughout the whole movie. He is never referred to as the leader, but Samuel Steins is the villain of this film, and he's not the villain. To be technical, this film has no villain. There's no villain in this movie. All the leader was doing was trying to get back at Ross. Ross is the one who locked him up without a trial. He helps Ross rise to power to become president and, so on and so forth. He helps Ross with his heart because Ross was dead. Now, all that's out the comic. General Ross in the comics, he went and got this, I forgot what it was, some gamma treatment. He had actually died, and that's what brought him back to life, but it turned him into the Red Hulk. And for a while, nobody knew who the Red Hulk was, and then it was revealed later on. But it's similar to the comics. That's fine. But the motivation behind this convoluted plan that the leader put into motion was just dumb. It was something that it could have been saved for Disney Plus. This would have been a nice Disney Plus show. This was not a movie. The plot was just silly. It wasn't to kill Ross. It wasn't to destroy America. It wasn't to tear down Captain America's rise or anything like that. He just wanted to show the world that General Ross can be a monster. That was his plan. And I guess it worked, Well, actually, his plan was to have the Red Hulk kill Captain America. And that didn't happen. And so when that didn't happen, it's like, oh, his plan failed. And come on, man. Y'all couldn't, all these years, they've been putting this movie together. This is what you give me. This is the plot of this movie. That's his grand plan. It was horrible. Speaking of putting it together, the screenplay. This was one of the most poorly written MCU movies I've ever seen. This is probably one of the most poorly written movies I've seen, period. This was just bad. And for the first 15 minutes of this movie was nothing but expedition. It was nothing but either that's lazy writing, news broadcast explaining everything that happened, and then had the audacity. Yes, President Ross has a daughter, Betty Ross. She was the ex-girlfriend of Bruce Banner. And really, what newscast? What news will say that? I mean, this is so stupid. It was just laid. Everything was laid out. And I say the first 15 minutes, everything was expedition. Everything was explained to you like you was two, and these filmmakers treated the audience with All I can say is disrespect. We didn't have enough sense to know what brought us to this point. Everybody knows what happened. Everybody knows the backstory. We didn't need to take up a third of this movie explaining how did we get here. It was a previously on. That's what it was. It was that cold open to the TV shows. It was ridiculous to me. But the writing was bad. The dialogue was bad. The only good parts as far as dialogue and writing was the flushed out sections of General Ross. His story that was flushed out perfectly. I know this movie went through a lot of reshoots, rewrites, and I don't know, reversals. I don't. They did a lot to try to get this movie out. I'm assuming that there was a lot on the cutting room floor. In my initial review, I said that there's a good movie in here somewhere. There's a good Captain America Brave New World movie. We just didn't see it. And honestly, I'm holding on to hope with that, because scenes that we saw in the trailer, just a couple of shots that we saw in the trailer, even dialogue is not in this movie. In the trailer, in I want to say both trailers, the teaser trailer and the official trailer, when General Ross tells Sam Wilson that you're not Steve Rogers, and Sam Wilson, Anthony Mackie, he delivers this line perfectly. He's like, "Yeah, you're right, I'm not." I'm like, okay, that's what this movie is. That's what they're selling me on. That's what I thought. That line is not even in the movie. That is not even in the movie. Now, Harrison Ford delivers his line, but they cut it out of the final film. And I guess they cut it because they're not going in that direction. Well, obviously they decided not to go in that direction. I'm just solely disappointed in this movie. The more I think about it, the more frustrated I get, because everything was there. It was right there for you. It wasn't difficult. It's pretty cookie cutter. It's simple where you could have went with this character. Now, I'm not a studio exec. I'm not a film producer. I'm sitting behind this microphone. I'm telling you, oh, it's simple. I know it's not that simple, and I know that filmmakers want to tell a story. They want to tell their own stories and whatnot. I get it. But when you have 60 to 70 years of comic book lore you can pick from, I mean, come on. You make this more difficult than what it has to be. Even if you don't want to touch the comic books, okay, we're going to go in a different direction. Look at the state of the world right now. Let's tell a story about that. Let's tell it with a black Captain America. Oh my God, you could have you could have set the world on fire. I mean, if you're gonna go down in a blaze of glory. Other than this, I don't know. I don't know what the thinking was at Marvel Studios. They cut out so much that you can tell was cut out of this movie. Number one, they cut the roles of Rosa Sanchez, not Sanchez. Oh my God, what's her name? The young lady who played Battle Angel. I can't think of her now. I know her first name is Rosa, but anyway, she was in this movie. I know, right? Not in it. Seth Rollins, the WWE wrestler, he was in this movie. He played Sidewinder. And you're asking yourself, wait, didn't Giancarlo Esposito play Sidewinder? Yes, he did. They cut Seth Rollins completely out. The whole Serpent Society, they cut him out and just relegated it to one character, basically. In reshoots, once again, you can clearly see. And the part that gets me, now, one of the guys I talked to over the weekend, and we were discussing the movie, and we both agreed on this. there's got to be more to this Sidewinder character. You're not going to hire someone of the ilk of Giancarlo Esposito to basically be a glorified cameo and be Sidewinder. I mean, if you poll everybody who are into comic books, into the MCU, if you polled them and asked them, what would you like to see Giancarlo as in the MCU? I would say well over 60% would say someone like a Magneto or someone, up in that ilk, a major character in the MCU. This dude is one of the most phenomenal actors working, and you cast him as Sidewinder. It is mind boggling. And he was only in for what, 2-3 scenes? It made no sense. And one of them was, once again, he was just there to give expedition. I don't understand the thinking. I just don't understand. Raheem Torres, aka Falcon, or the new Falcon, whatever they're gonna call him in the MCU. He started off as very annoying. The first 30 minutes of this movie, I was like, why they put him in this movie? Why is he in here? He's the guy in the chair. He's cracking jokes constantly. I mean, I'm fine with the jokes, but that's all he talks about. That is all he does is crack jokes. It's like they might as well would have cast Kevin Hart or something. I'm like, why is he in this movie? And as the movie went on, I started to be like, okay, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, old boy doing a pretty good job. Danny Ramirez, he's doing a pretty good job. I just don't like the way that character is written. I don't like how he's kind of force fed into the role or into the film, and we just got to accept it. Speaking of accept, there is a character, and I can't even think of the young lady's name. I can't think of the character name. There's a couple of them. I'm about to go through them. But the first one that pops in my mind, it was like, this is the most pointless character in film history. Is the Secret Service agent that is by General Ross' side, but she's a lifelong friend of Sam Wilson. She is somebody that he trusts more than anybody else on this planet. We've seen Sam Wilson ever since The Winter Soldier. Never once did this woman come up in conversation, a picture of her, any mention of her, nothing. Where did she come from? But she's in the movie. Oh, this is the one woman I trust. Oh, she is a lifelong friend and all this here. Who is this? We still don't know. It's like, yeah, I don't remember her name, but I don't know nothing about it. It was nothing said about a character. There was no development. It was just voila, here she is. And it's somebody Sam trusts, so that's that. Okay, that's that. Unnecessary. It was an unnecessary character. She brought nothing to this film, and there's nothing against her. Obviously, there was more to her character when they first started off, and they decided to go in a different direction. I once again, probably on the editing room floor right now. But what we got on screen, waste of time. The character of the young, the former Black Widow, who's Thaddeus Ross, security advisor or whatever she is. What is she? She never tells us nothing. Now we find out that she's a former Black Widow. That's because somebody looked up her information. I believe it was Wahim who actually did some investigating, some digging, and found out who she was and where she's from. Oh, she's a Israeli. Who asked for ethnicity? Now, she was supposed to play another character, but political stuff got in the way. So they changed her character, I believe, in the middle of shooting. So they changed that she's an actual Black Widow because nobody ever says this around her. She never addresses it around, when she's talking to somebody else. So she she's a victim. She's a victim. Pointless character. She did nothing. She did nothing to add to the story. She did nothing to add to the climax. She did nothing. Now, there's a slim chance that going forward in the MCU, these two characters that I mentioned will play a bigger role going forward. Maybe. I don't see it because there's nothing about them that appealing. There's nothing about them that's going to help the Fantastic Four create a portal generator or whatever. There's nothing about them that is special. And so it was pointless for this movie. And now, do every single character have to have a epic backstory and all that? No, I'm not saying that. But if you're going to introduce these characters and set it up like it's a big deal, that's my thing. They set it up like it was a big deal, and they're not. They weren't. There was nothing. They were there for a couple of scenes, and they moved on. It was so frustrating. So frustrating. I mentioned the battle earlier. Now, there was one battle that was actually shot well. It looked gorgeous, and that was the fight over the Indian Ocean, over the Celestial Island, to be exact. Now, the one bugaboo I have about that is the fact that they call it Celestial Island. How do they know that's a celestial? How do anybody know anything about celestials on Earth? Nobody knows because all the Eternals are gone. There's no history. Well, other than Sprite. I think Sprite is still on Earth. But that's it. There's nobody is to inform anybody about what this thing is. Now, that's a nitpick. That's why I'm not really driving on it. That happens in comics and alike. So I'm not tripping on that, but I just found it funny. That battle was awesome. Like I said, it was shot well. Shot very, very well. So as much as I'm ragging on this film, I actually enjoyed that scene. Now we get to about the end of the movie, and the leader, this is before the Red Hulk emerges. Well, let me pause that. Let's go back to that scene at Celestial Island. That was my favorite scene for a number of reasons. Not so much for the battle that was taking place outside with Falcon and Captain America and the fighter jets and all this here. That was exciting to watch. But you want to know what was the most excitement I got out of this entire movie, let alone that scene? It was the scene where Harrison Ford as Thaddeus Ross is talking to the leader on his little earpiece, and the leader is kind of egging him on, trying to get him to Hulk out. And he's fighting it, boy. Ross is fighting it. Harrison Ford did an amazing job here. And he's fighting it. You see his eyes turning red, and he's, trying to hold it back and all this here. I was like, man, this is fire here. This I like. This I like. So we're back at the hospital. We're at the hospital, I should say. Bucky, we get a cameo from Sebastian Stan reprising his role as Bucky Barnes. Now we have Bucky Barnes, who is running for Congress now, and which is weird, but we're gonna let it play out. I mean, we living in a world of fictional here, where Thaddeus Ross is the president. So why not Bucky Barnes, a known assassin? An enemy of the state at one point. But hey, it is, well, I'm not going to touch that. But anywho's, he's he's running for Congress. He goes to visit Sam, their best buds, and they have a discussion. That's all fine and good. But that was thrown in there, I believe. That was thrown in there just to say Bucky was in a Captain America film. That's all I can think of. It was a nice scene, but it made me want more Bucky. It kind of threw me out of what was going on up to this point in the film. But I just like that character. I like Sebastian Stan as that character, and so that was kind of, I guess you could say, selfish, oh, wishful thinking on my part. I just wanted more Bucky, because you can't have Captain America without a buck. It just fits. Now, this is a different Captain America, I know, but it it just didn't feel the same. Speaking of the hospital, where I was initially going a few minutes ago, the scene where the leader surrenders himself. This is where the film kind of just slapped me in the face and said, it's not gonna get any better. It's not gonna happen for you, player. It, he surrenders, which is part of his plan. He surrenders to Cap, and this is where I know that films, you got to kind of suspend disbelief. You got to look at movies in its totality and whatnot. Blah blah blah. He surrenders. This is all happened simultaneously as General Ross. I keep saying General, but President Ross is standing at the podium talking about the treaty and all this here. Okay, fine. And when he surrenders, well, his plan is to have him rage out, Hulk out, blah blah blah. He tells Sam this, I'm going to confess everything that President Ross has done over the last few years, namely to him, keeping him in prison for all these years, keeping him alive with the pills that were secretly that was secretly laced with gamma radiation and turning him into the Hulk and whatnot. So all this stuff was explained. Just then, okay, he turns himself over. The police are rounding him up, and then everybody at the press conference, this was the edit. They go switch over to that, and everybody phones lighting up, getting all the information. The leader confesses or whatever. No, they still didn't call him the leader. It was Samuel Stern confesses and tells everything about Ross and all this here, and he's standing there talking while everybody is reading the breaking news. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if this is an editing issue or a writing issue, but they seriously dropped the ball here. My head immediately just dove. I was like, my God, they couldn't do this, right? He's saying this, getting handcuffed as we speak. He wasn't fully handcuffed yet, but the notifications are going off on everybody's phone. Not that he's being apprehended. Well, not only that, but all the information. Then the conversation they had over the little walkie-talkie thing, his little earpiece between the leader and Ross plays on the speaker. Now, I know where you're going to go with this. Well, he's the leader. He set all that up. He timed it perfectly to whereas all of this was released at that point in time. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. You mean to tell me he planned it out to the millisecond, this grandiose plan, but it still didn't work? This was a horrible villain. Horrible. And the leader is a really good villain. Now he's a Hulk villain, but he's a really good villain. And they made him look like, number one, he wasn't a villain because he was kind of justified in his actions. Well, there weren't no kind of. He was justified in his actions. And so that don't make him a villain. It's a sidewinder. Yeah, he's a villain, but he was hired by the leader, so he was just there to do his bidding, to push along his grand plan. And so it was just silly to me. I was like, man, this is dumb. This is dumb. Just to have him rage out. And then the way the Secret Service reacted, the news came over the phone and they immediately started physically dragging Ross back. It, what is warranting this reaction here? Nobody shot at the president. Nobody rushed the stage. There's nothing to indicate that this is a life and death situation. But the Secret Service act like it was a neutron bomb under the podium. They were just yanking him back, making Ross get angrier further, and voila, we get the Red Hulk, and that's when all hell broke loose. And cool, it was great to see the Red Hulk on the big screen. Beautiful, causing all this destruction. Loved it. Lifelong dream realized, but it was just dumb. It was dumb. And then at that minute, you have Captain America, Sam Wilson, show up by himself to take on a Red Hulk. I just can't wrap my head around it. I understand what that character is supposed to represent, but no way. There's no way. There's no way Sam Wilson can last in a 10-minute hand-to-hand fight with the Red Hulk. I don't care how much vibranium you have wrapped around you. That's not going to help you. It's not going to help you. The same vibranium when Captain America threw the shield, Red Hulk caught it. He caught it and threw it back down. Like, man, like, get this out of my face. You know what I'm saying? He was like, that same vibranium, but the vibranium that he's wearing can withstand the Hulk. I can't. I just I'm just mad by the fact that this was not a Captain America movie. As I stated before, there are little moments throughout this film that I enjoy. Little moments that add up to enough enjoyable, I guess you could say, enough not to put it on the worst ever list. Is it? I said in my initial review that this was probably the bottom 3 in the MCU, and I had to think it over, and I thought it over, and I can kind of move on that. I can move on it. It's not in the bottom 3. There are worse. Love and Thunder. Thor: Love and Thunder was horrible. The Marvels makes me it makes me want to cut off a finger. I just want to punish myself for for watching that. It is that bad of a film in my eyes. And I know this is unpopular. I know this is going to be an unpopular opinion to most, but hey, man, in the walls, Quantum Mania just did not get there with me. And so it's not in the bottom 3. Bottom 5, maybe, but definitely bottom 10. It's definitely bottom 10. This movie, oh man, I just can't believe. I can't believe that they dropped the ball so bad on a movie that they had an opportunity. Honestly, they had an opportunity here to really set the MCU into a new direction, if that's what they're trying to do moving forward. Right now, this was a nothing movie that holds no bearing on anything else in the MCU. We get a post-credit scene. Sat there. I thought it was going to be more of a mid-credit, but it ended up being at the very end. So they felt that staying in there for an hour and 50 minutes wasn't enough. So they wanted you to sit through all those credits to see this post-credit scene that did nothing. Set up something that we already know is coming. It was dumb. First and foremost, It's you could tell this was a reshot scene that they added at the end. They probably filmed this last week. But you want to go logic? We going by logic here. We saw we saw Sam Wilson come to the raft earlier on, but towards the end of the movie to visit President Ross, even though he's not president anymore. He's locked up in the raft. Okay, so he goes visit him. He brings Betty Ross in with him. Liv Tyler returns, which once again I almost forgot about that. Why? Now, I know for a fact they cut her part down a lot. She was supposed to play more of a role in this film, and she was relegated to this little cameo at the end in the scene that we saw because I saw set photos where she was at the press conference, set photo where she was somewhere else, but it was a couple of scenes she was in. Let's not forget, she was one of the first names announced to join the cast when they first announced this movie. But we get to the movie and they keep her a secret throughout the movie. We hear her voice on the phone and that's it. I'm like, what happened to Liv Tyler? What happened to Betty Ross? And we finally get that little scene at the end. Now, it added to the character of Thaddeus Ross, him trying to connect with his daughter or reconnect with his daughter and, so on and so forth. I got that. And it worked. It worked for the most part, but it would have been nice to see more of Betty Ross because she plays a integral part in the Hulk lore, but let alone General Ross. But anyways, we have that scene. So we wait till the end of the credits and all this here, and Sam Wilson comes back to the raft. Now he's out of the sling, arm sling now. He's in a different outfit and all this here. Now he goes to visit the leader. And you're like, well, you lost the bet. And the way he walks in, like this was it, he's fired up. After we just saw him in the raft and he's beat down, tired and all this other stuff. Oh, yeah, you lost the bet, yada, yada, yada. And the leader's like, oh, that's okay, or whatever the case, however he worded it. I use the probability, and that's basically his power. He doesn't have precognition, but he calculates probabilities, given percentages and whatnot on what could happen. You got a 62% chance of this happening or whatever, which is cool. I like that little nugget they added to it. But anyways, there are others coming. I did the math and yada yada. And it went off. Huh? We know others are coming. We already know that Doomsday is coming. We know that the Fantastic Four is about to make their Marvel debut. We know that X-Men are on the horizon. I mean, they were pretty much introduced in this movie with the adamantium. So with that being introduced, we know X-Men is coming because adamantium is a big part of the Weapon X program, which later turns into Logan, aka Wolverine. So we know all of that is coming. If you was going to have a post-credit scene where the leader is given a proclamation about something, have it have some merit. Have it have something that will get you excited for what's coming next. I mean, my goodness, that was just the icing on the cake for me. I still can't wrap my head on how they fumbled the ball here. And once again, I know a lot of people like the movie. I envy you. I actually do. And I can see how you like it. I can see why you like it. It just didn't connect with me. I wanted more. I wanted more of Sam Wilson. I wanted to see his rise to greatness, and it wasn't really the black thing. That would have been great, but I wanted to see this new Captain America at his peak, getting to his peak, striving to get to the quote unquote Captain America status, because Captain America is a big deal. You know, you don't just, nobody can pick up that mantle. Not anybody can walk around and say, you know what, I'm gonna be captain. I'm gonna apply for that job when it comes open. It is not. That's not how that works. You have to be anointed, this man. Are you worthy to carry that shield? And as of right now, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with it. With Sam Wilson being Captain America, but I will say this to wrap this up. I didn't expect to go on for 45 minutes. The the end result of this movie is no fault of any actor in this movie. I said when I was walking out the theater, I honestly said, like, this is not Anthony Mackie's fault. This is not Harrison Ford's fault. This isn't Danny Ramirez's fault. This isn't Tim Blake Nelson's fault. They had nothing to do with the end result. You can honestly see that each and every actor did the best they could with what they were given. The problem was they were given horse manure and told to sell it off as chili. And it just didn't work. It didn't work. And it's very unfortunate because we were hoping, at least I was hoping and praying and wishing that Marvel was kind of turning the corner, heading into this stretch where we have, adding on the Disney Plus shows, you got Daredevil Born Again in actually next month, in March it premieres. You got that coming. You have Thunderbolts coming. You have Fantastic Four coming. So there's a lot coming down the pike that it felt like, all right, Marvel turned the corner. And your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is killing it on Disney Plus. If you're not watching that show, watch that show. It is, it's a cartoon. It's kitty. It's a great, great show. One of the best things Marvel has done in a long time. And last year they really did bounce back, with X-Men 97 and Agatha All Along was pretty good. It wasn't the greatest thing, but it was decent. So they was on a little roll there, and then this happened. So I was just hoping that we were back to the phase 1, 2, and 3 era. Now, to be completely fair and honest, each phase had a stinker. It wasn't like it was picture perfect in the beginning. Iron Man 2 wasn't the greatest. Avengers Age of Ultron wasn't the greatest. Yeah, there was some questionable decisions, but we still had good stories going forward, and this didn't do it. This was a pointless movie. They could have shelved this movie and nobody would have been the wiser. We could have kept it going forward. Now, with that being said as well, who knows? Now we got a quasi sequel to The Incredible Hulk, which a lot of people, when that came out, didn't too much care for it. I always did like The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton. I thought that was a really good film. But it wasn't enough to warrant a sequel. Plus, like I said before, with the rights issues and all this here, they never could do another Hulk film with Mark Ruffalo. All right, that's fine. So we got a little quasi sequel with this years later. Now, we saw how Thor: The Dark World got redeemed in Avengers Endgame. It redeemed itself, but it took years to get to that. Maybe down the line, there will be another film, another property that comes along and kind of redeems Captain America: Brave New World. I don't know how. I don't know how, because I strongly believe this is the last time we're going to see Thaddeus Ross. Last time we're going to see the leader. This will be and those characters aren't dead, but there's no use for them going forward, And so I don't know, but yeah, I'm hurt. I'm butthurt about Captain America: Brave New World. It's just the fact it could have went 10 different directions and been great, but they chose the 11th. That's how I feel. It, man. But that's one man's opinion. I would love to know yours. Did you enjoy Captain America Brave New World? Maybe I'm set tripping. Who knows? I could have had a bad weekend. I don't know. Mind frame is a little warped. It's possible. I've been told I got a throwed off brain anyway, so maybe I'm just tripping. But I would love to know your thoughts. But if you do disagree, I want to know how we disagree. We can disagree without being disagreeable. You know, like I said, I talked to a couple of guys before. They had different opinions than I, and I saw their complaints. It didn't change my opinion, but I saw their complaints. I want to know yours. kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can look up the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this spoiler discussion of Captain America Brave New World. And you want to hear something crazy? I still have a lot to discuss with this movie. I still didn't touch in on a couple of points, but I noticed I've been ragging on for almost an hour. So I want to give my voice a break and your ears, most importantly. But I do want you all to know this, that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.